Whew. Start this out. This is not about a cult. Even though Agile Manifesto kind of sounds like a cult. This is about 17 independent software contractors that got together in 2002 for a secluded ski trip in Utah. They did some skiing, maybe had some drinks, had a lot of arguments, but really came to consensus on 4 major principles or core values in software development. We will cover these 4 values in this video. I'm gonna tell you how I've used them in practice and how you might be able to use them too. These 4 core values are: number 1, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Number 2, working software over comprehensive documentation. Number 3, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And number 4, responding to change over following a plan. Well, even though we value the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. This first core principle, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. How I see this one is how people interface and communicate together. You have a daily stand-up, a daily talk point. That's more valuable than having this conversation on some kind of tool, whether it's Asana or jIRA, maybe MS Teams. Even though those conversations, there's a time and a place for those conversations on those tools, the fastest way to do it is just in person or over a virtual Zoom. Remember, that's why there's a 15-minute daily stand-up to talk about those items every single day over a virtual face-to-face versus going over tools. Could be even Outlook, right? You've been there before where emails go back and forth. The conversations take maybe days or weeks, and you could have just solved it in a 15-minute conversation or less. Core value number 2, working software over comprehensive documentation. So this one, at least for me, I've used in my experience, is usually when we come to a deadline, whether it's a time box event or a milestone, and we're out of time, we can't do all the work that we wanted to do. Nothing unusual happens all the time. And really what you hear is your prioritization of that work. So if they're developing some kind of code and they also have to do some kind of documentation, whether it's in a README or whether it's in comments, whether it's on a wiki, if they have to pick between making that software work and having documentation on how it works and not having the software work, of course I'm going to pick the software working so we can showcase that and then catch up documentation in the next iteration or the next section after. Third core value, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. This one's a very tough one. Traditional program managers, hey, a statement of work, the contract is the law of the land, but it all depends on how that contract was written. Is that contract very descriptive on what you will and what you won't do? And if that's the case, then it's difficult. You're going to spend a lot of money and a lot more time going back to the drawing board through legal, through security on both ends. So 2 sets of securities from both companies, both legal representatives for both companies, getting this contract rewritten back and forth, time, money, and also you're losing opportunity costs because you can't develop it. Sometimes you don't have a contract that can't work. And so this is where this principle comes into play. Could we write the contract big enough, but also with some description of what we plan on doing, but instead work with the customer on what they think should be done in this time frame? And let's actually do that. And then of course document it. We always have to do that. But really, we rather make these contractual agreements maybe a little bit more vague so we can work with the customer to figure out what they want and then deliver that expectations, right? The customer's still happy because we align on what they're thinking on what was supposed to be delivered in this time frame or this budget. And that's where this principle comes to play for me. The 4th core principle is responding to change over following a plan. This is probably one of my favorite ones because every time it comes up that because of this principle says this, we don't need a plan, right? We're agile, we're flexible. And this principle is not saying that. Remember, we value the things on both sides, but we also value the things on the left-hand side more, which is responding to change. All this is really saying is we're okay. We're okay with accepting new features and requirements to reprioritize it in that backlog if it's higher value for that customer. And this is versus, hey, we committed to this 3 or 6 month plan. We're going to stick with it. Sorry, not being flexible. I'm going to stick the route. Even though there might be some new information from the customer or the market, it might have changed that. Maybe it's not as valuable or not as valuable at all anymore. And also what does this mean is the level of planning changes as you go through time. So at the beginning, you might have a lot of detail, but as you're continuing to go through the planning process, maybe 3-6 years out, it gets a little bit more high level, vague, right? So you have some flexibility to change. So I really like to hear your comments or thoughts on the Agile Manifesto in the comments below. And I gotta get out of here. It is getting hot in this hood, in this winter jacket. You're part of the cult though. So like always, stay Agile-ish.